Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking something incredibly raw and revealing. It's a deeply personal case study about the relentless pursuit of academic perfection, and more importantly, what actually happens when the human system is pushed completely past its breaking point. We're going to dive into an autobiographical account of a student navigating the insane pressure of the Indian education system, specifically their prep for the highly competitive JEE exams. So let's just get right into it.
We're looking at a student who literally sacrificed everything, their physical health, their mental well-being, their social life, all to pass the grueling exams for the Indian Institutes of Technology, the IITs. And the wild part? They failed. The realization was just devastating for them. The idealistic world they'd built up in their head completely shattered against the harsh reality of their own physical and mental limits.
Which brings us to a massive question, and really the core theme of our explainer today. We have to ask ourselves, does working 4 times harder actually guarantee better results? Are you, right now, making this exact same kind of extreme sacrifice, assuming that just putting in more hours automatically equals more success? It's a trap so many of us fall into, right? Thinking we can just brute force our way to the top. Well, let's see exactly how that played out in our case study.
Okay, let's jump straight into part 1, the lockdown transformation.
Look at this incredible contrast. Back in 9th grade, during the January 2021 lockdown, this student was thriving. We're talking daily 2-kilometer runs in under 8 minutes, doing household chores, eating a balanced diet, and hanging out with online buddies. They were highly functional and emotionally balanced. Now contrast that with the 12th grade routine on the right. Just a couple of years later, 4 to 5 hours of sleep, extreme isolation, 0 exercise, and absolutely no social bonds. You have to wonder, how do you go from point A to point B so fast?
Well, the crazy thing is, their initial drive was actually super positive. The author wanted to step out of their isolated imaginary world. They wanted to avoid being second best in sports or class. And yeah, they wanted to make their parents proud. They were genuinely captivated by the brilliance of science. Ultimately, they just wanted to be a socially and emotionally balanced, successful person. The foundation was totally there, built on really healthy ambition.
But then things shifted. Let's look at part 2, the illusion of effort.
16 to 17. That is the jaw-dropping number of hours this student started studying every single day during their 12th grade year. Driven by this intense internal pressure and the false belief that more input always yields more output, they just abandoned every healthy habit they had. No more running, no more friends. Just a relentless, punishing schedule consuming basically every waking minute.
And here's where the tragedy really hits. Look at this data. In 9th grade, living that balanced, healthy life with plenty of sleep, they peaked at a 97.6%. But by 12th grade, despite literally tripling or quadrupling their study hours to 16 or 17 a day, the results dropped and plateaued at 90%. The extreme effort didn't just fail to help, it actively destroyed their performance.
So why the drop? Well, the author pointed out perfectly here. They admit that their forgetfulness peaked. Basically, the extreme workload broke their brain's ability to retain anything. Instead of building actual knowledge over the year, they were reduced to desperate, last-minute cramming. They couldn't link their memories to real life anymore because their cognitive foundation had just completely collapsed under the weight of that schedule.
Which leads us right into part 3, the science of sleep deprivation.
It wasn't until later, after reading Matthew Walker's book Why We Sleep, that our author realized what went wrong. They discovered this concept of the unseen wastage of efficiency. When you routinely get less than 8 hours of sleep, it silently and invisibly eats away at your energy, your memory, and your mental health. You don't notice it on day 1, right? But over months and years, the cognitive damage is just catastrophic. Just look at this daily breakdown at the peak of their burnout. 16.5 hours for studying, a measly 3 hours to literally just survive and eat, and only 4.5 hours of sleep. 4.5. When you squeeze sleep down that much, your brain loses its biological ability to repair itself. It physically cannot consolidate the information you're spending 17 hours trying to learn. The input was there for sure, but the brain's save button was completely broken. And the fallout was devastating. It wasn't just about dropping from a 97 to an 89. We're talking a total destruction of their natural sleep cycle, zero creativity, and a broken memory. They started experiencing profound feelings of mental disturbance, existential dread, and this overwhelming urge to just drift back into an imaginary world to escape how unbearable physical reality had become.
Now, how does a brain cope with that kind of stress? That's part 4, the cost of escapism.
This is a really fascinating self-analysis from the author. They mapped out exactly how their lack of emotional control led straight to depression, making them literally hate their physical reality. Having zero social life made them incredibly lonely, feeding into that existential dread. And what was the exhausted brain's solution? Retreat. Retreating entirely into an imaginary, isolated world just to survive the mental overload.
But it gets even more complex. You see, even though they were completely burned out, the guilt wouldn't let them just stop and rest. So their brain found a massive loophole. Step 1, feel overwhelmed. Step 2, get crushed by online hustle culture. Step 3, seek dopamine through insane 64-hour anime binges in bed. Why? Because watching a screen tricked their brain into thinking it was still doing active learning, without the physical effort of studying. It was a digital dopamine drip to avoid the guilt of doing nothing.
And man, the internet algorithms just poured gasoline on this fire. Like the author says, the internet is constantly showing you someone else who is working harder, studying longer. That constant digital comparison trapped them in a really toxic cycle. They felt completely worthless if they weren't grinding 19 hours a day. And when they couldn't meet that impossible standard, the guilt pushed them even further into screen addiction.
So how on earth do you break a cycle like that? Let's get into part 5, reclaiming life through habits.
The author realized they were stuck in what they called the trap of mindset. You know that feeling, trying to just think your way out of burnout? You can't reason with an exhausted brain. Trying to do that just fuels more guilt. Instead, you have to tap into the power of habits. You have to totally bypass your stressed mind and force physical changes. Close your eyes. Think about absolutely nothing. Take a long nap. You have to let your biological system reset first.
And that brings us to the absolute core lesson of this explainer. The author writes, habits will lead to your desired mindset. That is some hard-won wisdom right there. Actionable physical habits have to come first. You got to fix the sleep, fix the routine, and fix your physical reality before your mental state can even begin to heal. You literally cannot force a burned-out mind to just be happy or get motivated.
So, as we wrap this explainer up, I want you to take a really hard look at your own routine right now. Think about the sacrifices you're making today. Are your daily habits actively building your desired mindset, or are they quietly destroying your potential? Remember, more hours absolutely do not equal more success if you're destroying the very machine that does the learning. Fix your habits and your mindset will follow. Thanks so much for joining me today, and seriously, take some time to think about that balance in your own life.